If it's too late to worry and you're too blue to cry, then get ready for Dr. Lori Roth. She's a Ph.D., black belt, host, singer, songwriter, mom, gun owner, survivor, and red-blooded American through and through. From 3,000 feet up in the mountains of Washington, it's the Annie Oakley of the airwaves. Ready or not, here she comes, Dr. Lori Roth.
Welcome to our Unsolved Crime segment. Each and every week at this time, we visit with Susan Murphy Milano. She's a crime blogger, author. She is a survivor, and she has her own show, and she speaks her mind, has worked to help thousands of people stay alive and report crimes and get out of harm's way. And each week we're talking about different cases that are important to know about that involve families and real people. Susan, introduce who you've brought along today.
I am proud to introduce Monica Cason from the Q Center, ncmissingpersons.org. Been around since 1994, working with the missing across the country. And they are one of the premier, if not the agencies across the country that work with families and missing persons. And we have Greg Myers. His daughter on June 25th, 2000, was last seen getting into a dark green pickup truck on the 35th block of Kensington Avenue in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It was also known that Tracy had some personal problems, and she was in a treatment center at the time in Kennett Square. And I want to say, first of all, because this really bothers me in all the cases that I work on across the country, it doesn't matter what somebody does for a living, doesn't do for a living, who they are, if they have an addiction to something, they are still someone's family. And we also do this every week with the expectation that law enforcement will treat these cases, particularly in Philadelphia, with the same respect they would as their own. This person didn't just go off on their own, didn't just disappear, and it doesn't matter. We shouldn't label someone just because they make mistakes along the way or they don't. They're missing. And they didn't go missing by themselves. Something had to have happened. And so, it's an honor for me to have, this case is the year 2000, since June 29th, 2000. She was cleaning up her act. She was moving on with her life. And I think Greg Myers, her father, you can speak to. Tell us about your daughter, please, Tracy.
Tracy was a great kid growing up. She was sort of like a Shirley Temple. I mean, she just loved life. Tracy always looked out for the underdog. She was an intelligent girl. Tracy could pick up like a foreign language, like somebody who can pick up music by ear. She was into every culture. She had friends in many cultures. She would get into different religions. She was very involved. We lived around the corner from a Catholic church, and she used to go up and visit the nuns at the convent. She had all kinds of rosary beads. She would hand them out to her friends. The ironic part of that is we're not even Catholic. But she was a perfectionist. I mean, everything had to be dead on with Tracy. She was distinguished honor roll every year. She was in gymnastics. She wrote poetry. She had friends galore. And they still talk about her today. She just,
tell me about the community, though. Tell me about the community right there. Was it a steel community? Was it a blue-collar community?
It was blue-collar.
Okay. And so she was going to high school. She was 21 years old, right?
Right.
Okay. And she was. When did you learn that she was entering into treatment?
We started having an issue with Tracy with drugs back in 1995. She had met this boy, and all of a sudden the friends changed, and we noticed that she was coming in groggy. And I always said to my kids, if I suspect that you're doing any sort of drug, I'm going to take you and get you tested. Well, we did, and sure as heck, it turned out she was doing drugs.
Hang on. We'll dive in on the other side. I want to find out more about your daughter and what happened that day she got into that green pickup truck, and what do we know from here. Talking with Susan Murphy Milano. We're talking with Greg Myers and Monica Cason from the Q Center. I'm Lori Roth.
No, this is not American Idol. So keep your shirt on and keep your powder dry. Dr. Lori Roth will be back in just mere moments. Her name Here's Dr. Lori Rock. Here she is again, right now.
We're talking about a tragic missing persons case. Tracy Lynn Myers. She's been missing for a long time, June 25th, 2000. Oh, my goodness. She was only 21 years of age when she went missing, had everything to live for. She was trying to get her life put back together. She had a bit of a drug problem, but she was a lover of people and reached out to all kinds of people. And her father, Greg Myers, is here trying to find some sanity with it and find his daughter. Monica Cason of the Q Center is here, and Susan Murphy Milano. Greg, you were talking about who Tracy Lynn was, and she that day got into a pickup truck, and then what do you know from there?
All right. From what we understand, she got into a pickup truck on the 3500 block of Kensington Avenue. Okay. Now, this was reported by a girl she was living with at that time. After she had left the rehab, apparently she was staying with this girl for a couple of days. We went back.
Did you know the girl?
At a later date, and the girl no longer lived there.
Greg, did you know the girl? Did you know who she was?
No,
like, was
we
she somebody?
found her phone number and Tracy's belongings when we picked them up from the rehab. And we kept calling every number, and that's when we finally got a hold of this girl. And she said, she lived with me for a couple of days. Up to that point, up to that date. Mm-hmm. And then also, I have to skip forward a little here. We had received calls in September 2000 from a counselor at the Parkside Clinic in West Philadelphia and another former counselor, Tracy, stating that clients were coming in stating that Tracy was dead. She died of an overdose. So again, I had asked this counselor, Quanda Knight, I said, well, where's the body? Where's the body? Called the police. But at that same time, she had told me the day Tracy got into that truck that one of her aides was a little worried and suspicious, and he wrote down the tag number. Later on, it turned out he lost it. I never got the name of this counselor. She never gave it to me and left it at that. But, I mean, that's just freaky to say he was worried about this, took down the tag number, and then lost it?
That's
so nothing makes sense.
So what do they know? You bring the case current as far as you do know, and Monica, jump in, or Susan, if you have anything. Greg, do they have any suspects? Do they have any clues, or is it just a complete vacancy sign?
Complete vacancy sign. Yeah. Right now, the main thing the police are doing now is when remains come up, they're checking for DNA.
I want to go back. Wait. Red flag. Where they say to you, like it's a bad sneeze, like it's nothing, that she's dead. Monica, weigh in here. No one calls and says that with such certainty, do they?
No, they don't. And you can't, until you have a body, there's still hope. And I can't understand, if they're making a statement like that, why in the world, where is the proof, and why haven't they interacted with the family more? There's a lot wrong, Susan, with this case. So much time has passed, and looking, into unidentifieds that are found in the local area. I mean, she could be anywhere. She was seen, number one, getting into a vehicle. If, in fact, that is true, she could be anywhere. So they need to look beyond just the general Pennsylvania, Maryland, type area. And it concerns me, too, because of the truck and because of other ties in the area. I mean, it could be anyone that she got in this vehicle with. But why wasn't that, looked into heavier? Why wasn't pressure applied to get further answers? Where is the documentation that supports anything to believe that she is deceased? I mean,
why wasn't there with the people that worked at the facility? First of all, she's under their care. She's still there. She leaves if they note this. Why aren't these workers talked to instead of the officer, Michael Dunn, who basically says where does he get this information on July 20th, 2000, stating that Tracy was missing and mental and suicidal issues? He must have talked to someone to even document that, no?
Well, we gave him as far as the mental and the suicidal issues.
But for them to list it that way, he must have also had to have spoken to somebody at the facility where she was under the care. She wasn't released there or signed herself out, did she?
She just left. I believe the police never talked to that facility at all.
And I'm sorry, if you are suicidal, suicide victims don't hide, but it goes right back to this long tail of this case and many hundreds across the nation like it. You cannot find something if you don't look for it. The truth has not been sought in this case, nor has there been any searches conducted for this child. And I say child, she's 21 years old.
Yeah.
And you know, this is the whole problem with the case. There's nothing to prove anything. All we have is a missing child. All we know is that she did attend this rehab, and we believe, we don't even know if in fact she stayed with this girl for a couple days, and we believe, not known for a fact, if in fact she got in this vehicle. So that's what you have in this case. There's nothing more, nothing less. That's it.
We have one other thing that was in 2004. I believe, Carol and I were in a restaurant, and we bumped into this woman who worked there, and she had told us that a person that Tracy used to go out with had told her that Tracy died from an overdose and was found under a bridge in northeast Philadelphia. The bridge is light blue, and one path off the bridge is cobblestone. Well, he was a little shaky, too, this character she was involved with, so we asked the police to question him. At the present time, he was in Delaware County Prison. But by the time they got to him, he was released from prison and had no idea where he was.
Well, was he in prison at the time that your daughter went missing?
We don't know. We don't know.
That would be the first question I asked. The second question,
no kidding.
Were the police aware of a body being found?
No kidding.
Really,
Duh.
Yeah.
And I know that they sent a cadaver dog there based on a phone call that was made, but they basically blew it off, and I don't know if there's documentation that they even did the search when you made the phone call.
Right. Well, another time they were supposed to go up to that area with another lady we were involved with. She no longer is functioning in that capacity, and she had literally gone up to this site in northeast Philadelphia with 2 detectives. And I said, first she told me that Philadelphia wouldn't stop the trains for them to do a search. They had cadaver dogs and all that. And then later on, when I called her again to refresh her memory, they never even got out of the car.
So Greg, as far as you know, so at the time she was in the inpatient treatment center or treatment, had she been released? Was she out again? Was she living with roommates, or was she with you? What do you know?
She was still in treatment, and as a matter of fact, it was the longest time she was in treatment, and she was doing wonderful.
So she wasn't in a relapse mode the last you knew?
No.
Okay, she wasn't. So she wasn't going off to get a drug fix.
She was doing wonderful. She was involved with apparently some sort of newspaper they do out there. She looked wonderful. I saw her the weekend before, and my wife had left, and not even 2 hours later, after my wife got home, we got a call from them stating that Tracy was AWOL.
And what about the boyfriend or this relationship, this person? Did you ever formally find out his name? Did they? Don't say it on the air if you know it.
Name.
Okay. And was he ever questioned by anybody?
Nope. No, that's the one who...
She should have left Monica out of that facility because she knew was waiting, got contacted somehow, somewhere.
Okay, I lost your sound for a second.
I said,
okay,
Monica, she had to have gotten contacted somehow to leave the facility and just go with somebody. It had to be a prearranged event.
Correct. Well, and usually when you're in treatment, you have no privilege to see visitors other than family. They usually don't even like you to see boyfriends, any kind of friends, or anything like that. And I know that firsthand. It's usually only parent, brother, sister, child, or husband, and especially anyone that might have shared in that addiction, they don't even allow, even if it's a family member. So, you know, it doesn't even make sense that they wouldn't know if she had received a visitor because they keep, you know, tight rein on the people, but especially a phone call. Why weren't the phones, you know, drawn? The phone calls, you know, made out of the place. I mean, there's so much that was missed, and I don't know if it's retainable now, but, you know, the bottom line is we need to let people know she's missing. We need to make sure that her DNA is not in a state lab and that it is definitely in DCODIS. And there's just so many other things that we need to follow through to make sure that she's registered and all the proper things for missing person, and then proceed forth from there to bring awareness to her case and try to find these people. And unfortunately, because of the time that's passed, and unfortunately because of a lot of people in her life may have had a drug problem, these people might even not be living or even living in the area anymore because they may have wandered off somewhere. So it's going to be very difficult. Not impossible, but it's definitely going to be difficult only because so much time has passed, and this is what needs to stop.
So if we want people to make some calls on information, it was at the time in 2000. Do we know the name of the treatment center? Is there a phone number, Monica, that people can call with information? Someone had to know her or work with her or see something and recall something.
Well, the police need to go back there and re-interview everyone, and the family needs to send a letter and request and demand information as far as, even though she left on her own, Greg, I don't know if for sure if this was a voluntary treatment center or did she put herself in it herself?
Yeah, it was voluntary.
And see, when you're an adult, you can exit from those programs, so there's really not a sense of responsibility, but they did notified the family and let them know that she had exited the program. And it is well known for people to have relapse, in a long-term drug addiction. But irregardless, she was reported missing, and that's where the ball never got off the ground.
Right. But it was easy for everybody to say she was dead the way that the phone call comes down. So does she go into treatment for, to clean herself up to move forward, which it sounds like she did, because in talking to other people about this case, she was just excited. It was the longest she had ever been clean. She was moving forward. I don't think that somebody in that mind frame would do that and throw away 4 hard weeks of being in a center, being clean. Was there something with the boyfriend? Could she have been in the early stages of pregnancy? Who knows? Yeah. There's so many things that aren't out there, and the medical records. So is there, Monica, an ability to get things from Freedom of Information Act, if that's possible, if they even still exist?
Yes, the records still should exist, and the family, if they don't already have it, they can get a power of attorney over her affairs to seek those type of information. And that's done all the time in missing persons. You just have to get an attorney and seek that temporary power of attorney to retrieve information to locate an individual.
Wow, that's the first time I heard that in 11 years.
Before we go to the bottom of the hour and say goodbye for now to Greg, Monica, where can people call with any information at all? What can they do?
Well, they can remain anonymous. They can contact our organization. All tips are processed and provided to the law officials that are in charge of the case. They can go to our website at www.ncmissingpersons.org. They can directly email us from that site, or they can go to Tracy's page on that website. And there's at the bottom there's a submit a tip form, and they can remain confidential right there and submit that tip, or call their local law enforcement if they have information.
And there is a $5,000 reward.
Well, the truth is nobody knows if she was kidnapped, if she's been held. There has been cases in our country where people have been held for, 5 years, 10 years, a decade or longer in captivity or sex captivity or sold into slavery. I mean, we don't know what happened to her if she was hanging around with the wrong people or somebody, like you say, Susan got her pregnant. We don't know.
But the red flag is that somebody actually said the word dead. Somebody actually called. There's a disarming factor in that that's very alarming in this whole case.
And that needs to be followed up thoroughly. Even to the person that made that statement should be given a lie detector test of some sort to determine if there's any kind of truth to that statement. But I say without a body you still have hope, and I say until you have a body you have to search, and that's the most important thing in every case of a missing person. But first off, people need to know this child's missing, and there's not barely anyone that knows that she's missing.
So it's Tracy Lynn Myers. The picture can be found on your site, Monica, correct?
Correct.
And can you give out your website, please?
It's www.ncmissingpersons.org, and at the right-hand corner, she should be running on the front of the website, but you can also put her name into the search box, and it'll bring up her entire profile with information and contact information.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll be right back with Monica Cason.